I don't know about you, but I'd grown up being told that astrology was of the devil and that I should avoid it to protect my eternal soul. It wasn't until I got divorced, when everything fell apart, that I realized my well-meaning upbringing hadn't prepared me for the real world at all, and I began to seek for answers outside of my childhood boundaries. Having always loved astronomy, I soon discovered and fell in love with the ancient art of astrology. It healed my soul, it helped me discover and love who I truly am. It took me beyond all the people-pleasing, beyond the societal limitations, and into a world of authenticity and confidence in my future. It changed my life completely. You know, I was a single mother for 14 years, and that started just as I began my immersion into astrology. Through all the ups and downs of raising 3 beautiful children and creating a home for us, astrology was my foundation for understanding life. And it even led me to meet my wonderful soulmate and now husband, David from San Francisco. So if you're ready to walk away from your own limiting beliefs and build a life that you truly love, well, I'm ready to lead the way. And let's see what the stars have in store for us this week. Taking your power back. Massive personal transformation and change. Huge life healing. That's what happens during Pluto retrograde season. And we have just finished Pluto retrograde season for 2025. Let's find out what it's done for us and what we can expect going forward into the future with Pluto now moving direct. Just to let you know before we do, I am now offering live in-person readings with you and me together for the first time ever. And this is available now through my revamped Guiding Star Astrology website. So enjoy, my friends. Check it out. The link's in the description below and come and have a reading in person with me. All right, so Pluto's retrograde season for 2025 ran from early May, around the 4th or 5th of May, depending where you are in the world, and it comes to an end on October the 13th or 14th, again, depending where you are in the world. So it's roughly 5 months long. And it has actually been the first time that Pluto has spent an entire retrograde season in the sign of Aquarius. Here is Pluto down here. Since the 1700s, Pluto has not done a full retrograde season in the sign of Aquarius until now. So that's what we've been experiencing for the past 5 months. Pluto retrograde is often viewed as a time for re-evaluation of our lives and our inner being and personal inner transformation. Not only that, but we have also had a super intense Pluto retrograde. Pluto is always more intense whenever he's retrograde, but he's actually become out of bounds, beyond the bounds of the sun during this retrograde. Now, this is something that occurs whenever Pluto is in Leo or Aquarius, roughly, give or take a few years, but roughly every 80 years. Now, we are going to be having a live astrology chat about this with my Guiding Star family, how it will affect us personally, Pluto out of bounds, and how it affects the world at large. This is taking place on the 18th of October when we're going to be having this live chat. Feel free to join us. The link's in the description below. We haven't had Pluto out of bounds for about 80 years, so this is a really intense and powerful time. We're going to dive into all the nooks and crannies about this event. Okay, so there are 3 phases, according to shamanic astrology, when Pluto is retrograde and moving into direct motion. Let's talk about the 3 phases. They're very important. The first phase has already happened, as has the second phase, and we're embarking now upon the third phase. But the first phase is this feeling, excuse me, I've had a cold for the last few weeks. The first phase is when we feel powerless. Pluto crossing any planets around 1 to 3 degrees of Aquarius is where you would have felt it. And of course, if you had any planets squaring, so in any planets in 1 to 3 degrees of Taurus, Scorpio, or opposition in Leo, and also you might have felt it a little differently if you had any planets personally in your chart around 1 to 3 degrees of the air signs Gemini or Libra. So this first phase, when Pluto is triggering any of those planets in your personal chart, by square, opposition, or conjunction, and also trine. Gives us a time when we feel, excuse me, somewhat powerless with whatever that planet represents. Pluto takes away our power during that first phase, and that's when Pluto is moving direct, crossing and aspecting those points. Anything that those planets in your chart in those points rule will feel somehow powerless. And in shamanic astrology, we say that something will have happened that you didn't know was going to happen before it happened. So this is what's been going on prior to May this year, when we then entered the retrograde phase. Now, I've had this because my sun is at 2 degrees of Leo, and it's exactly opposite Pluto in his direct and retrograde motion at this time. So there's been massive change in my life. What's happened to you that has brought massive change that you didn't see coming, that you never expected? Upheavals in your life on an internal level and an external level prior to May this year, sort of in the first few months of 2025. That's the first phase of Pluto's energy. The second phase is when Pluto turns retrograde and moves backwards across those points, 3 to 1 degree. He aspects the planets involved for a second time. This is not an ordinary time, and this is what's been going on since May, when Pluto's been in his retrograde motion. Pluto calls out our deepest fears at this time, especially the fear of success. You know, what if I succeeded? What if I felt safe and secure in the world? What if I didn't have to worry so much? We have to face the fact that sometimes we self-sabotage. And oftentimes during Pluto retrograde, we look at the depths of those self-sabotaging behaviors. You know, we don't step forward. We don't put ourselves out there because we fear what might happen if we do. Maybe in a past life, we put ourselves forward and we got cut down and, put in jail because we spoke up or did something. And we fear that moving forward, that momentum, that putting ourselves out there. In this lifetime, we can't explain why, but we self-sabotage ourselves from doing such things in this lifetime because we've had that fear. So sometimes during Pluto's retrograde motion, for us since May 2025 till now, October the 13th, 14th, we can actually find that Pluto calls our bluff. We actually might get the success we've always wanted, but it can be very unraveling. I had an element of success occur in my career over the past 5 months, and it left me reeling, and it changed my mindset about who I am and what I offer to the world, my capacity to move into my destiny. It was confronting. And I remember reaching out to when this occurred for me, I reached out to a couple of my girlfriends and I said, I'm just some country girl from a farm in Australia, you know, out in the outback in the Riverina. I'm not much, you know, and here I am on the brink of something beneficial, the success I've always dreamed of. I don't feel worthy. I don't feel capable. This is what happens, this kind of effect is what happens during Pluto's retrograde phase. We get what it is we feel that we've always wanted, and it can unravel us a little. It causes us to address our self-sabotaging behaviors and mentalities that are actually holding us back in life. But what a pure and good thing that is to have happen, because then we readjust our mental attitude and our focus, so that we can actually move beyond those limiting beliefs. Pluto does a lot of good in his retrograde phase, even though it can feel a bit unnerving at times. But now we're embarking on the third phase. Pluto now turning from retrograde to direct. And he's going to be moving across these planets once again, conjunction with any planets at 1 to 3 degrees of Aquarius, square for any planets at 1 to 3 degrees of Taurus or Scorpio, opposition to any personal planets at 1 to 3 degrees of Leo. They're going to get that third hit of Pluto, and to a lesser extent in sort of terms of traumatization of Pluto energy, the air signs, if you've got planets at 1 to 3 degrees there as well. But the third hit is about to happen, and this is happening now throughout the end of 2025 and into the early 2026 as Pluto crosses these degrees for the third time. This is when we learn to fully embrace that new energy that began during the retrograde phase. We embrace the new mindset. We learn to expand into our destiny, to empower ourselves more and be the change that is required. So you might again get to experience what it is that you say you've always wanted as a reality, but you're going to have a different mindset and spirit and energy about it now because you've faced your fears. And you'll find peace with this new dynamic, this new state of being. Now, some people, I can hear you all saying at the other end of the YouTube video out there, I haven't experienced any change. Nothing's changed. I feel stuck. I haven't transformed. I haven't got what I've always wanted. Well, do you have planets at those key degrees? Because that's when we feel it the most. Some people won't have any planets at those degrees, and therefore they won't experience that Pluto dynamic that I've just described. Really, it's going to be most profound for people who've got personal planets, and by personal planets, your moon, your sun, your ascendant, and to a lesser extent, Mercury, Venus, or Mars at those points, or the planet that rules your rising sign. So Pluto, let's talk a little bit more about Pluto retrograde. Pluto is more intense when he's retrograde. So now on the 13th and 14th of October, he's going to be burrowing down on this degree, the first degree of Aquarius, and that is what is going to be felt really intensely for a couple of days. But then Pluto in his moving direct is going to become more externalized, and we're going to have less intensity in that sense because Pluto will no longer be retrograde. When Pluto is direct, he's more interested in external power, externalization, having a great job, lots of money, being successful, getting some sense of power in the world, taking our power back. Whereas when Pluto's retrograde, he's doing the internal healing, the internal investigation, the internal transformation. So yes, that might be triggered by external events in our life. But what it's really trying to do is peel back those layers of the onion for us internally. And then that sets us up for greater success when Pluto moves direct again, which he is about to do now. Over the last 5 months, we have been registering the unseen in the world, we're more perceptive when Pluto is retrograde. So we've been able to pick up on things that at other times we might not have picked up on, the deceptions, the traumatizations, the imperialism, the power structures in the world that have a negative connotation to them. And we've been able to see through the darkness in humanity much more easily. So this, I have Pluto in the 8th house in my natal chart, the house of darkness, and people with Pluto in the 8th house can often have that experience all the time, able to peer into the depths to see the shadows in the world. And this can isolate us from life and from other people. You may not be the kind of person who experiences that very much, but when Pluto goes retrograde, you might have noticed it, something that you mightn't notice at other times. So we see more patterns of the darkness. We see the manifestation of the darkness more clearly when Pluto is intense, when he is retrograde. It's not an easy journey, but it is a necessary one for things to be revealed, for the darkness to be revealed during Pluto retrograde phase. Now, if you were born with Pluto retrograde, you'll also be the kind of person who has much greater insights into the subconscious, because it's just naturally your state of being. For the rest of us, of humanity, we get this during Pluto's retrograde period, which is roughly 5 months out of every single year. Humanity may take a greater interest in psychology and analysis and deep research. It can also make us feel a bit more the loner, the introvert, while Pluto is retrograde, because it is somewhat isolating. Think about being the god of the underworld. It's not like you're very social, is it? If you know the mythologies around Pluto. That is the intensity of Pluto increased at this time. But we experience greater powers of death and rebirth and regeneration and rejuvenation at a soul level. They peak during Pluto retrograde, and they usually relate to the house position that Pluto is retrograding in. We're going to be talking about where that's been felt in just a minute. But this is a metamorphosis period. Pluto retrograde, now we're the butterfly emerging from the chrysalis. now that Pluto is turning direct. So, some key aspects of Pluto retrograde into direct motion include we have been reevaluating and transforming ourselves. We have introspected and re-examined our values, our goals, and our relationships, and it's going to be a time now when we move into lightness now that the personal growth has been achieved. There's been shifts in different areas of life. Pluto retrograde influences fields like friendships, career paths, financial situations, and family dynamics that may have now taken on a whole new perspective for us. Self-care can be a focus of Pluto retrograde. And during the last 5 months, it's probably been very important to ensure a balance between giving and receiving, because neglect of the self can lead to exhaustion and illness. Speaking from experience, as I cough my way through this video. But also Pluto retrograde has given us an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to reclaim and embrace our true self, in essence, to take back our power. But we probably have had to embrace some level of courage and new conviction to do so. We have been asked to level up. So now that it's all done and we're moving into the action phase, when we start to turn all that deep transformation into a shift in our worldly situation, what does it mean for all of us? Let's explore that. For the Aries rising, sun and moon people among us, we've got Pluto turning direct in the 11th house. Now, your friendships may have been tested and refined and purified over the last 5 months, Aries, but this has probably led to a strengthening of commitments for those people that you really do love and that you really do connect with. Pluto in the 11th house, it's not the best of transits for group involvements. Pluto's an isolating energy and it wants to do things independently. But Pluto retrograde has given you Aries individuals a gift for going into a group situation, revitalizing that group situation, injecting like some sort of whirlwind into a stale, stagnant group situation, getting things more focused, and then you piss off. That's what Aries, I don't know that Aries people do that particularly, but Pluto in the 11th house tends to have that effect. You may have, during Pluto retrograde, been a bit of a whirlwind in a group situation that now you're walking away from as Pluto moves direct. Your involvement in some sort of group situation might have set things up for a reconstruction of that group. You might have found that your presence has simply, revitalized the group or restructured the group. So now it's destined to have more success because of what you brought it. Aries, this has not been, I should say, for the last 5 months, the time for you to follow the crowd. And going forward now with Pluto moving direct in the 11th house, you're not going to want to do so. You're going to want to write your own page, write your own chapter of life, and you absolutely should seek out that individuality, that individuation, especially if you are developing some sort of project or mechanism for creating more prosperity and achievement in the world. You should go it alone. This is not a time for leaning on others as Pluto now moves direct in your 11th house. Prosperity and abundance is more likely to come. The fulfillment of your dreams is more likely to come when you row your own boat, now that Pluto is direct. So that's what I'm seeing for my Aries rising, sun or moon friends. Now, just to let you know, I'm offering live in-person readings with me for the first time ever. They're available now through my brand new revamped Guiding Star Astrology website. Moving along to Taurus rising, Taurus sun, Taurus moon people. Well, for Taurus people, Pluto is now moving direct in your 10th house of career and worldly legacy. You can expect some forward momentum with your career now. Now that you've done the introspective purification work on what your career should look like, what you want it to be, the legacy that you want to leave when you're gone, now you can take action. Now you can move forward. And this obviously can lead to significant outward transformations, like new directions, changing priorities, and for some of you, brand new careers even. Pluto in the 10th, both retrograde and direct, can have problems with authority figures. So this is going to be a 20-year phase for many of you Taurus people. It's likely to be a theme in your life for the next 20 years. So if you can find a job where you can work for yourself, or where your boss might frequently go on holiday or disappear and let you just do your job, then you'll be a lot happier. So this may now eventuate for you now that Pluto's moving direct. This can be a time period where you might reorganize office systems and career setups and structures so that they become more uniquely your own. Sometimes, as Pluto turns direct, well, when Pluto's retrograde, he doesn't receive the recognition that we sometimes deserve for the work that we've done. But then when Pluto turns direct, we start to get the authority, get the recognition, and be seen for, okay, you've done this work for the last 5 months. I really value that. I treasure it. We're going to honor you for it. That can also happen. So your reputation can increase now that Pluto moves direct. If you have a tendency to be controlling and inflexible in the workplace, and sometimes Aquarian energy in the 10th house can make us a little bit inflexible. I mean, the ultimate is to be progressive with Aquarius in the 10th house, but sometimes Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, so sometimes we can be a little bit stuck and slow to change. If that is the case, then Pluto moving direct can really shake you out of that rut and get you having some forward progressive momentum. If you have a tendency to be controlling and inflexible in the workplace, you need to be very considerate of how you're treating people, your co-workers, your employees, especially if you're in a position of authority. Now that Pluto is direct, you will have maybe done some work around how to be a good boss, how to be a good leader, how to take that position of authority and work well with it so that you can be appreciated, so that you can be valued. Any authority that tries to control or dictate to you while Pluto is retrograde probably has caused a sense of frustration and aggravation in you, but it's made you again peel back the layers and purify how you relate to authority and the dynamic you have with authority. Now you can move forward independently and be more on your own terms, knowing what it is you want and need and how to live in your power in terms of being out there in the world and in the career that you're pursuing. So my friends in Taurus, out there in Taurus land, just to let you know, I am now offering live in-person readings for the first time ever. And if you would like one, all you've got to do is go to my brand new revamped Guiding Star Astrology website and place your order. I'd love to see you there. Moving along, Gemini. Gemini rising, Gemini sun, Gemini moon people. Well, Pluto is now turning direct after 5 months of retrograde motion. Pluto is now turning direct in your 9th house. So this has really probably been encouraging you over the last 5 months to get out of your comfort zone, Gemini. Pluto retrograde has probably caused you to be very philosophical and look deep within and find some new purpose and life direction and dharma. What do you really want out of life? What feels most fulfilling? You've probably done a lot of deep diving around that topic. How can you make life feel more alive and fruitful? Any planet that goes retrograde in the 9th house often indicates that you might go back and learn something new. Now, for the many people, that means going back to school, but for some people, it's revisiting old lessons, old wisdoms, old beliefs, old truths, and reevaluating their pertinency for your life and where you're at right now. Once you've done that, and you've probably been doing that for the last 5 months, exploring what it is you want, learning what it is you want to achieve, so that life feels more fulfilling to you. Then when Pluto turns direct, life doesn't feel so daunting. We know where we want to go. We know what we want to achieve. We know how to make it happen. We're more inclined to know what it is we need to do, the next steps we need to undertake to enhance our career and our future meaning and purpose. So Pluto moving direct this week is bringing you to that point. Okay, now I know which way to go. So for the last 5 months, some of you might have had some tough times with traditional beliefs, dogmatism, religion even, but certainly maybe even sort of governmental beliefs that are being forced upon people against their will in most instances all over the West right now. These might have also been part of what you've had to deal with. You might have felt that you were being controlled by the belief systems out there in the world with, such rigid judgmentalism. If we have a different stand to what the official narrative being pushed actually is. So you might have really come up against it during the last 5 months because of that, Gemini. When Pluto is retrograde in the 9th house, we see the hypocrisy in our leaders, especially religious leaders or thought leaders or leaders of certain beliefs. And certainly our governments are turning into those sorts of institutions now, trying to force their beliefs on the populace. I've even seen banks. There's a bank in Australia, it's called Bank Australia, who tries to force their beliefs onto the people who've got accounts with them. And, tough luck if you don't like what their belief stance is. That's just the beginning, to my mind, of, if digital ID should come in, Bank Australia would be the first bank to close down accounts based on you're not meeting your emissions targets and all that kind of stuff. And you can't access your money because you're not achieving the emissions that this bank thinks are appropriate for your personal life. I digress. But judgmentalism is the shadow side of the 9th house. And so you might have come up against maybe nothing as drastic as that, but you may have been exposed to these sorts of thinking mechanisms and beliefs and, ideologies. And you will have seen the hypocrisy in such things. You will have seen the lack of freedom, the lack of individuality, and Pluto doesn't like that. So the best advice that I probably gave you when Pluto went retrograde, my Gemini friends, would be to avoid situations that trigger those feelings of disgust regarding beliefs and morals and ethics that maybe you don't align with, because it can be traumatizing. It can be so confronting and depressing. But now Pluto has finished his retrograde and you're going to be like, no way, I'm moving beyond those beliefs. I'm moving beyond those ideologies. I've learnt lessons. I've peeled back the layers. I've purified my own beliefs, and I'm just not buying into whatever it happens to be that's being pushed on you that you don't agree with, the dogmatism that's out there in the world. Now you're going to stand in your own truth. Now you're going to stand in your own beliefs. Pluto has finished retrograding. You're going to embrace what you truly believe. Now, this is the house of Dharma and purpose as well. Again, now that Pluto is direct, you're going to know what it is you want and the steps you have to take to get what you want out of career and worldly achievement now too. Recently, I did a reading with somebody who is a Gemini rising, who is looking at all these themes in their life. How do I make life more meaningful and purposeful for me? Now that Pluto is turning direct, the puzzle pieces may well fall into place, and I encourage you to just go with your gut feeling on those things, my Gemini rising friends. It won't lead you astray now that Pluto is direct in the blessed 9th house. Just to let you know, Gemini, I am now offering live in-person readings with me for the first time ever. I've never done that before, so they are now available at my brand new revamped Guiding Star Astrology website. Come and have a reading with me. I'd love to get to know you personally. Moving along from Gemini to Cancer. Cancer rising, Cancer sun, and Cancer moon people. Well, Cancer, we have Pluto turning direct now after 5 months of retrograde in your 8th house. This is a time when the last 5 months when you've been feeling probably very intuitive, probably getting some prophetic downloads, significant emotional advances and emotional understandings, premonitions, prophecies, omens that may have changed your life. It doesn't mean that it was an easy time. There's probably been a lot of, banging your head against a brick wall as you learn these deep, emotionally based lessons, as you learn to trust your higher wisdom. It probably hasn't been easy. In fact, I know some Cancer people who've had to really put their nose to the grindstone during the last 5 months as they have faced up to the realities of their life that they may have buried their head in the sand about prior to this Pluto retrograde period. It's a time, Pluto retrograde, where we feel like we've got to really do a deep internal dive and take control of our finances to sort of get a handle on where we are financially in our life. In fact, our finances might have felt for the last 5 months completely out of control and wild even. This is a house of upheaval and trauma and crisis. So we might have felt a bit of financial crisis with Pluto retrograding in the 8th house for the last 5 months. There might have been issues with cooperation and collaboration with other people, where we're just not gelling with our partner or working. It feels like, we're just a bit of an island, that there's no support mechanism around me. Pluto can be very isolating, and he's very intense when he's retrograde. So that feeling of maybe financial isolation, or cooperatively, you're on your own, you have to do things on your own, no one's got your back. It's isolating in a very material sense in the world. Control issues are also very powerful when Pluto is retrograding. So you might have been battling for control in a circumstance with your partner, with your boss, with a business collaborator. There might have been issues of who is in charge here, who has the control. And even if you've never really experienced that in your life in general, the themes may have come to the fore now that Pluto is in your 8th house and retrograding, and he's going to be there for another 20 years. But this week he turns direct. So now those control issues, you will have peeled back the layers, purified the issues, and know where you stand. In fact, now that Pluto is turning direct, you can take your power back. You can grab some level of control back in your life. Grab some level of control back in terms of your finances, or a business situation, or a partnership situation. There is the chance now that Pluto is turning direct to sort those things out and to feel like you've ironed out some of the creases in those issues. Therapy is always recommended whether Pluto is direct or retrograde in the 8th house. So I encourage you, if you've established some mechanism of therapy, whether that's journaling or doing some kind of psychological analysis, or dance therapy, or music therapy, art therapy, any kind of therapy. If you've been doing that, continue with it. Don't stop now that Pluto moves direct. You might feel like you've done all the introspective work and now you understand where you're at so much better and you understand those deep layers of yourself, but don't stop, because Pluto has so much to give you now that he's moving direct in the 8th house, the house of therapy. It could really continue to transform your life in a beautiful, powerful, necessary way. It's also a fabulous time now Pluto is direct for connecting with all sorts of healers in almost every realm: physical healers, mental healers, emotional healers, spiritual healers, economic and financial healers, like practical advice, technological healers, energy healers. Connect with such people, and you will find now that Pluto is direct, you are going to move forward in just such big leaps and bounds in your life, because Pluto direct takes things to a whole new level of momentum now that you've done the inner introspective work. Just to let you know, my beautiful Cancer friends, I am offering live in-person readings with me for the first time ever, and they're now available at my brand new revamped Guiding Star Astrology website. I'd love to get to know you better by doing a reading together with you. All right, Leo rising, excuse me, Leo sun and Leo moon people. For Leo people, Pluto is now turning direct in your 7th house. Brace yourself, Leo, because you are about to change the dynamic in a relationship. While Pluto was retrograde for the past 5 months, he probably brought up a lot of intense elements in the relationships that you have. Maybe power struggles, maybe jealousies, either your jealousy of your partner or their jealousy of you. Pluto can bring these sort of dark tendencies out to be dealt with when he goes retrograde. And now that we're at the end of Pluto's retrograde period, we probably have some clarity about our relationships, some clarity about the dark corners of our partnerships that we didn't realize were there. And we've been given a chance to transform and purify those little dark corners so that our relationship has better standing, better strength to move forward now, if we've dealt with things wisely, with consideration, with consciousness, and in an energy of therapy and healing. So we can carry that clarity, that transformation of our personal connections into our future and have better relationships now because of it, now that Pluto's direct. When Pluto goes retrograde in the 7th house, as he's done for the last 5 months, we can feel like something of a loner in the world. It can be harder to cooperate, and either that's you feeling like it's difficult to cooperate and collaborate, or your partner has found it hard to cooperate and collaborate with you. It can go either way, my beautiful Leo friends. Certainly, I'm a Leo sun, and I have just felt like, you know what, I've just got to dig into my business and make a priority of my business by revamping my website and rejigging a lot of the way I do things. And that has meant that I've had to say to my family, to my husband, David, I don't quite have the time to go on an evening walk tonight. I have work to do that I need to do for me. You know, I don't quite have the time to go away to the beach this weekend for a surf. You can go, I have to stay home and do some work. So we become more of that loner. This is just an illustration. It may play out differently in your life, but the idea is that when Pluto is retrograde, you become more of a loner. There's less collaborative, participation with others because we have to focus on ourselves for some reason or another. Now, that can look in a healthy manner, like I've just described. Okay, I had to work on my business and I didn't have the time to give to my family that I now do have because I've done the work that I needed to while Pluto was retrograde. But that was how it worked for me. But what about you? There may have been a challenging issue around collaboration where there wasn't a justification. It was just a frustration with having to give up your time or your space for somebody else. Excuse me. There can be frequent control issues that manifest in your one-on-one relationships. And that can be client relationships, family relationships, all sorts of relationships. But control issues might come to the fore during the Pluto retrograde phase that we've just been in for the last 5 months. In a marriage relationship or a marriage type relationship, one person can also tend to become more controlling than the other during this period as well. This is not necessarily a negative thing. Maybe one of you needs to learn to take your power back, and that needs to happen. But it's not an easy thing to experience, but it's part of the purifying of the relationship. Look, it's never healthy to see one partner become disempowered or to be the partner that's becoming disempowered. It's not a bad omen for a marriage to have gone through that. But if we've been mature and wise and look to transform things in the dynamic that we have, then with that maturity, with that transformation comes, as I've already illustrated, a much greater dynamic in relationship, a much more empowered relationship, a much more refined and purified relationship that is going to be stronger into the future. And what do we get then if we've done that work while Pluto is retrograde? What do we get? We get what we really want, a happy relationship, a more fulfilling relationship, a more empowering relationship for both parties. But it probably required some purification over the last 5 months. You're about to embark on a greater experience of relationship. And I'm not just talking about, romantic relationships. This could be a better business partnership, a better client practitioner relationship. It could be a better contractual situation for your career because this is the house of contracts. It could be a better business setup because this is the house of business. It's the 10th house from the 10th. So it's a business framework that we establish. Pluto has made us refine all of these things so that now we can be in a better position going forward. And my beautiful Leos, just to let you know, I'm now offering live in-person readings with me for the first time ever. They're available at my brand new revamped, reworked, as is the nature of Pluto in the house of business, one of the houses of business, my reworked and revamped Guiding Star Astrology website that I was so busy working on over Pluto retrograde period. Come and have a reading with me. I'd love to get to know you and your story. Thank you, lovely Leos. Virgo rising, Virgo sun, Virgo moon people. Do forgive me, I've been very unwell and just on the healing side, as Virgo understands. It's so good at healing and perfecting things. Pluto for Virgo rising sun and moon people is going direct now in the 6th house of healing and restoration. So what does this mean? Well, friends, during the last 5 months, were the vibes a little bit off in your workplace? That's Pluto retrograde. Pluto in the house of workplace and the environment that we work in might have been causing you for the last 5 months to confront people who are competing with you or undermining you in your workplace, or things that haven't been working out right in your workplace, or that feel uncomfortable or that feel unfair. Pluto has been highlighting those little dark aspects of your work life. And now that he's moving direct, things have become transparent. You know where you stand. You know what you stand for. And you may have discovered who you can trust and who you cannot trust in your workplace. And that's, now that Pluto is going direct, that's actually going to really support your future work aspirations. The clarity that Pluto has brought to the working life that you have is actually going to be very empowering, Virgo, for your future. You'll know what you can say to one colleague and what you can't say to another colleague. You'll know where you stand. And that's because Pluto's been refining things in the workplace for the last 5 months of his retrograde period. Now that things are moving direct, you have more clarity and ability to make better choices and decisions for a better work life. Now, Pluto turning direct can actually cause you to become more authentic with the work that you're doing. You may have, had a bit of a power struggle about, this is not for me, this is for me in the workplace. And you might no longer tolerate being treated a certain way in the workplace or doing a certain job that's not part of your job description. And now you can take your power back and say, no more. I've had a purification process around those things in my workplace, and now I'm taking my power back now that Pluto's moving direct. It is a time for becoming more intense and more focused on our work while Pluto is retrograde. So you probably did a bit of a deep Pluto dive into the structure of your work, the nature of your work, the systems that you are working with. And now you know what you will and won't tolerate. You also probably have struggled to handle any interruptions that may have occurred to your projects or work issues. Interruptions and just sort of distractions might have been really annoying for you over the last 5 months. Those sorts of things might have caused alienation from co-workers. You get a bit shirty because you're in the middle of a project and you keep getting interrupted, and they may have been like, we're going to stay away from you because you're a grumpy guts. Those sorts of scenarios might have cropped up over the last 5 months, but the reason they cropped up was for you to look for better ways to do things and for you to peel back and purify those layers of how you're interacting with your colleagues and how you're doing your work. Also, while Pluto for the next 20 years is moving through your 6th house of work, my beautiful Virgo friends, you really are best to look for opportunities to work for yourself, to work alone. Pluto is not the group activator, Pluto, if you're familiar with the mythology of Pluto, and if you're not, do have a listen to my Pluto Through the Houses video series here on YouTube, because the mythology is fascinating. But Pluto was not a social god. He kept to himself. He was very much a loner and very isolated, and he liked it that way. Here in the house of work for the next 20 years, whether Pluto is retrograde or direct, that's going to be an issue. You might be looking for ways to just work for yourself. You might become something of a hermit, at work. And that's just part of the process that Pluto wants to use to reveal certain things to you, certain truths, certain realities that your soul is longing to know. Also, Pluto is a healing planet, but that doesn't mean that it's not without some hard work to do so. I would suggest that over the last 5 months, as Pluto's been moving through one of the houses of healing, that you might have encountered some new types of healers. nutritionists, dietitians, acupuncturists, chiropractic people, podiatrists. You will have been finding all sorts of new healers that are really the right fit for you. And now that Pluto is direct, you've got an idea of how to work with your health better because of those practitioners, because of your research into the various alternative mechanisms that you can take to look after your health. Now that Pluto's direct, you've got a lot more momentum. Maybe you've got a series of appointments set up with a chiropractor or a podiatrist or an acupuncturist that are going to really bless you and your health going forward now that Pluto is moving direct. Don't forget, Pluto is therapy. And I just encourage you to really do some diving into some sort of physical therapy. Dance therapy is very good with Pluto direct in the sixth house. Anything that involves movement of the body, care for the body, dealing with blocked emotions in the body and moving that energy, shifting that energy. Any kind of therapy along those lines is to be encouraged. Reiki, energy healing, psychic surgery, all of those things are very good for dealing with the stuck energy to heal you now that Pluto is direct. And just to let you know, my beautiful Virgo friends, I am now offering live in-person readings with me for the first time ever, and they're available at my newly revamped Guiding Star Astrology website. I look forward to hearing your story when we have a reading together. Moving along to lovely Librans, Libra rising, Libra sun, and Libra moon people. Well, my Libran friends, the energy of Pluto turning direct is happening in your fifth house. And Pluto has been retrograde for about 5 months in your fifth house. You might have been leaning on other people for creative inspiration and creative direction, because that's what Pluto does in the fifth house, is he makes us introspect, I guess, about what inspires us, what excites us, what gives us spark, what gives us joy. And so as we introspect about those things, we start looking around us. Well, okay, what kind of tarot cards do I find beautiful and uplifting and inspiring? What kind of tarot cards do I find really off-putting? What pictures, what designs? So we're weighing up, okay, what's beautiful, what's not. This is something that Libra does very well. They are the scales after all. But here in the house of creativity, we're looking at what gives us inspiration, what lights that fire of creativity within us and what doesn't. I've used the illustration of tarot cards, but it could be anything. It could be music, it could be books, it could be literature, it could be films. What is it? What type of things inspire your creativity, Libra? You've been doing the deep introspective work now as you've looked around at what other people do. Now, with Pluto direct, it's time for you to start creating. It's time for you to start, excuse my coughing, it's time for you to start producing. Now that you have weighed up what is beautiful, what is lovely, what is creative to you. So there's a message in this now. Spirit has been speaking to you for the past 5 months, guiding you, showing you the creative path to take. This is now a powerful time when Pluto goes direct, where you know what floats your boat, you know what designs you want, what colors to use in your house, what furniture looks good, what clothing, whatever creative expression you choose to use. Pluto has shown you the way forward now. And if you are working in artistic creative fields on the reg, then you may have, now that Pluto is direct, unraveled a creative block that might have been present. It may have felt like a block, like nothing's coming to me. My creative juices aren't flowing. I think of George McFly. Nothing's coming to my mind. Now that Pluto is direct, any creative blocks end. But they've had a purpose. The retrograde period and what felt like a block has had a purpose for you to sort of reevaluate what it is you love, what it is you want to create, what it is you want to produce. So now you might be quite surprised at the different direction your creativity is taking. You might be surprised at how your passions have shifted and the new direction that they're now taking now that Pluto is direct. When Pluto is retrograde, he's more psychological. And we can also see our creative potential going through a bit of a psychological reanalysis too. We might be more focused on what is meaningful creatively to us. And now, with Pluto going direct, we are expressing ourselves at a whole new level, in a whole new way. We've got in touch with our childlike heart again, and we're now willing to put that out to the world. We're also, some of us might have been desiring to be celebrities. It depends on the structure of your natal chart, whether that's going to be possible for you or not. But if you've had a drive for celebrity, you might have been evaluating over the last 5 months the mechanisms for achieving recognition and popularity and celebrity in the world. And now that Pluto's direct, that is given some action and momentum to go forward. It can even bring you, if your natal chart is inclined that way, into a whole new level of popularity, a whole new level of celebrity, a whole new level of social status. But the reason that comes, the reason that unfolds, may well be a surprise to everybody, including you. You may never have seen it coming. You may never have realized that by doing a certain thing, by putting yourself out there in the world in a certain way, by being creative in a certain manner, that you would suddenly have overnight success. So Pluto can bring this sort of transformation of our worldly recognition and our popularity in the world and our creativity to the fore now that he's moving direct. Wow, what an interesting and exciting time, my lovely Librans. Just to let you know, Librans, I am now offering live in-person readings with me for the first time ever. Usually I've done pre-recorded readings, and they are now available at my revamped Guiding Star Astrology website, something that I put my creativity into over the past 5 months of Pluto retrograde. I was looking around, observing what kind of websites do I like, what trigger me to want to engage with those websites. I've done a lot of research, and I've put everything back together. I've created my website and launched it as Pluto now moves direct. Very much the nature of what I've just been talking about. So check it out. I'd love to hear your story about your life journey if we were to have a live reading together. Thank you, Libra. Excuse my coughing. I do apologize. Scorpio, rising, sun, and moon people. Pluto is now turning direct after 5 months of retrograde in your 4th house. This is a time when the retrograde period, you might have set aside a priority and time for family and home, focusing on strengthening your family bonds or renovating your home. This retrograde phase of Pluto has probably caused you, Scorpio people, to look at where you're living. Is it floating your boat? Does it make you happy? Is it where you want to put down roots? Is it where you want to be? Pluto is causing you to refine that and reprocess where it is you live. So you might have been looking to renovate your kitchen. You might have been gathering plans and magazines and Pinterest boards on different kitchen styles for the last 5 months. Now that he turns direct, away you go with your new renovation. You might have been looking at whereabouts in the world I want to live. Do I want to live in Montenegro, or am I going to live in San Diego? Which one is going to do better for me in life? And you've been weighing up and evaluating what's going to float your boat. What's the right thing during Pluto's retrograde season? Now that Pluto turns direct, you've got clarity. You've purified that process of where it is you want to live and why you want to live there, and you're ready to go. You're ready to make the change. Pluto moving direct gives you the action element to where you live. You might have been looking, at a new structure for your family. Maybe you have, kids who are ready to leave the nest, but they haven't quite got the money yet to live out on their own in the world right now. And let's face it, it's hell out there. And so you've been doing a reevaluation. Okay, well, if this is the way it is in our family, we need some new roles because you're now adults. Even if you're not living out of home, you need to take on adult responsibilities in our household. You need to cook dinner, or you need to be more proactive with the chores. So you have restructured over the past 5 months of Pluto retrograde the family dynamic. Now, Pluto retrograding in a hugely psychological house like the 4th house can actually bring to the fore during the retrograde season for the last 5 months sort of any issues of control. If your parents have been controlling and manipulating of you, or if you are being controlling and manipulating of your children, and I've even seen some children of a very young age being very controlling and manipulating of their parents, those issues of power and control in family dynamics come up to be dealt with. You will have had to, I feel, well, many of you Scorpio people will have had to sort of refine and process and purify who is in charge, who has got the control in a certain family dynamic. And of course, many of you have been able to use this time to get some psychological insights into the family dynamics that exist. You might have been dissecting why dad behaves the way he does, why I always had this relationship with my mother that was not healthy, or whatever it might be. You have been dissecting and refining and reevaluating family dynamics, learning to take your power back. And now that Pluto's direct, you're going to be able to do so. In fact, Pluto is a god of therapy. It may have been good for you to do therapy over Pluto retrograde season, but if you didn't, then it's not too late. Pluto moving direct is also a good time to be doing family therapy, understanding family dynamics and understanding why you are the way you are because of your upbringing, because of your childhood. So therapy around family issues is a good thing to do at any stage for the next 20 years while Pluto is moving through your 4th house. On a positive note, Pluto now direct in your 4th house can have seen you renovate a family dynamic. Not just literally renovate your home, but literally like renovate how you relate to mum and dad. Maybe there's been an issue of trust that has had to been addressed with mum and dad or siblings or something, and you have turned that around. You've flipped it around and restored and renovated maybe a trust issue that was destroying the family, or a skeleton in the closet that needed addressing. So that Pluto retrograde time may have, in many instances, have led to a purification of the family dynamic and a positive expression of control that now takes formation as Pluto moves direct. We can always control things, but we can never control people, and we should never seek to control people. And sometimes that's a tough lesson to learn. Families are usually where we learn those lessons. So this is probably for many Scorpio people been an issue that they have had to address during Pluto retrograde season. And there is a new healthy directioning of this energetic imprint that you can embrace now that Pluto is going direct. The purification has occurred, the forward momentum with family, with emotions, with your ability to control what you can and leave what you can't, that is now flourishing in your life with Pluto moving direct. And will continue to be a process of learning for the next 20 years. Just to let you know, Scorpio, I am now offering live in-person readings with me for the first time ever, and they're available at my newly revamped Guiding Star Astrology website. I look forward to hearing your story and exploring the heavens with you in a live reading together. Sagittarius rising, sun, or moon people. Well, Saggy friends, what an interesting time you have had for the last 5 months with Pluto doing a retrograde motion in your 3rd house. This has probably been a time where you've had to choose your words carefully, Sagittarius. How you express yourself is seen through the 3rd house. And when Pluto is retrograde, in fact, for the whole next 20 years, when Pluto retrogrades and directs in your 3rd house, you might actually have to watch your words lest they come across too blunt, too harsh. Now, when Pluto is retrograding, we can actually take the time to introspect about our words and, look for the right words and purify our conversation. In fact, my husband, David, who's a Sagittarius rising, during Pluto retrograde phase has been like, we need to stop swearing. Sen, that's my nickname, we need to stop swearing. And I'm like, we do. I hate that I swear. I mean, sometimes especially when we're talking about politicians and banking families, swearing is a natural expression that comes out. But I don't like that I do that. And David's been very proactive about, I want to stop swearing. I need to use, more intelligent language, or language that describes my feelings in a better way than being, cursing. And this is very Pluto retrograde in the 3rd house. That's what it's all about. It's about finding the right words, using the right phrases, creating a verbal dynamic that is uplifting and beneficial and purified That's Pluto retrograde in the third house. Many of you Sagittarius people might have been experiencing similar things. But even if it wasn't, all about swearing, you might have been looking at, well, what words can I use that can create deeper, real, lasting, authentic connections? How can I communicate with others and not come off as a dogmatic know-it-all? These are some of the evaluations we might have been applying to our lives over the last 5 months. Pluto in a retrograde for the last 5 months here, you may have found, Sagittarius, that you have a capacity and ability to control the minds of other people through intense focus. This is a superpower, especially if you've happened to, for all of you Sagittarius who are experiencing this transit, with great consciousness, with great awareness, and of course Pluto giving you great mental clarity here in the third house, comes a need for great integrity about how you use your words to manipulate and control others, and how you use your focus to influence the minds of other people. I would suggest that now that Pluto is moving direct and you've realized the power that you can have over others, the intensity of your words, the manipulative force of your words, Sagittarius, the realization may have come of that superpower that you possess over the last 5 months. Now that Pluto is direct, it is time to use that knowledge for a greater good. Use that energy to become a great teacher, to positively influence and uplift the minds of others, to bring blessing through your words, to bring upliftment through your words. That's a better way to use this energy. There may be, as Pluto is retrograde, there may have been experiences, depending on your age and your circumstances, there may have been an experience of you resenting the controls of the education system. Now, let's face it, with Uranus in Gemini, the whole education system, particularly in the Western world, is going to get a big upheaval. But Pluto in the third house for Sagittarius people, you guys are going to be the movers and shakers behind all of that. You're going to be looking at the education system, the teaching mechanisms, the structures of our, teaching systems in all avenues of life, workshops, adult education, child education, early education, all those educational systems. You're going to be looking at them and going, I don't like the way it's being done. There's a rebelliousness towards the structures that exist there. And you'll have little tolerance for the shallow information that is presented in those situations. And you'll be really wanting to restructure and renovate and redefine those educational systems that you have influence over or have a bearing upon. My husband, David, produces wonderful, wonderful courses teaching people about astronomy, mythology, and how those two interact and connect, mythology and astronomy. He has a wonderful plethora of courses available at his website, undyingstars.com. And I know that during the Pluto retrograde process, David has been reevaluating his whole mechanism for using those courses and taking a whole new tactic with his new courses that he's producing for that site. So this is part of the process that Sagittarius people are going through. David I'm using him as an illustration because he's a Sagittarius rising. He's had very little tolerance over the last 5 months of Pluto retrograde for shallow information about what's happening in the world, and he's really done a deep dive to understand what's really going on in the news, what's behind the news. The news that we might receive on TikTok or on the mainstream media or wherever it happens to be. What is the truth underneath that? Pluto wants to get to the bottom of it. And now that you've had 5 months of Pluto retrograding in the house of the news and information, you know the truth. You know what's going on behind the scenes and causing certain things to happen and certain power plays to occur, etc., etc. You know it. And now it's time to take action with that knowledge now that Pluto is direct. Maybe you want to speak up and use your voice and pass a message on to the world about what you've discovered. Maybe you want to teach. Maybe you want to host a workshop. Maybe you want to share some information. Pluto has been refining your knowledge, your information base, your sources of information for the last 5 months so that you're prepared to share it now, Sagittarius. And you're so good at teaching and sharing information anyway, Sagittarius. But now there's a lot of impetus and momentum and powerful force behind you doing so. Again, David has been looking at a new book he wants to write, new courses he wants to produce, and a new perspective, new foundation for what he believes that has come to the fore over the last 5 months that he now wants to give to the world. Pluto has taken you on a deep dive that it's now time to share a message with the world about, Sagittarius. Pluto, just on a different topic that's third house related, Pluto retrograde can have brought about tensions with sibling relationships. There might have been power struggles with siblings, confrontations with siblings, control issue that might have come to the fore with siblings. But now that Pluto is direct, you've had a chance to refine those relationships, those situations. Now, if it hasn't been between you and a sibling, Sagittarius, it may have been that your sibling was going through some sort of power struggle, confrontation, or control issue. And this was exactly the case for my husband's sister, who had to face the end of her working life in a certain scenario. And, okay, I need to take control over my life and choose what I'm going to do next. There was a very confronting time for her and brought a lot of tensions in her life to the surface that were all about how much control she actually had over her own life and her own choices. So this is very much the nature of Pluto in the house of siblings. It may not affect you personally, Sagittarius. It may have been affecting your siblings or relatives or even your neighbors with issues of power and control and struggles, power issues. So now that's coming to a conclusion. You may have refined and clarified, or your siblings or your neighbors might have refined and clarified those issues, those confrontations, those power struggles, and now they know how to take their next steps forward. Or let's pray and hope that they do. So just to let you know, my beautiful Sagittarius friends, I am now offering live in-person readings with me for the first time ever, and they are available at my brand new revamped Guiding Star Astrology website. Do check it out. Thank you, Sagittarius. Moving on to Capricorn rising, sun and moon people. Well, my Cappy friends, for you, Pluto has been retrograde and now turning direct in your second house. For the last 5 months, this has been a time while Pluto's been retrograding to explore financial opportunities and discover new investment strategies. And now that the 5 months is over, hopefully you will have come up with some conclusions, some mechanisms to go forward to create income and resources for yourself, or to redefine what it is that you think is valuable in your life. Prior to this retrograde motion, you might have thought, you might have really valued a stunning home, having all the trappings. Pluto goes retrograde and you might have been doing some deep purging and introspection around values materially, and you might realize, you know what I value? Being out of debt. Let's sell our fancy dancy house and let's buy something a little bit more in our budget so we don't have as much debt to the banks to deal with. So that's an example. It's not the case for everybody, but I'm using that to illustrate a value system, and in terms of resources, what you value. So it's been a real time of exploration and introspection, redefining, and even a renovation of what you value. Not a literal renovation of, your stuff, although it can be, maybe you've been renovating some furniture or starting a YouTube, furniture reno channel or a house reno channel or something like that. That might have been the journey that you've been on, literally, but it's also figurative, a rejigging, a renovation of what you place your value in, what you think is important. Might have gone through a complete change over the last 5 months. Pluto retrograde in the second house wants control over the resources of life, over our money, over our stuff, our cars, our food, our clothes, furniture, etc. And when Pluto retrogrades, we can actually tap into fears and psychological vulnerability that might be present from maybe past lives regarding our resources. So those things might have bubbled up. For example, in the illustration I used earlier, you had your fancy house, but you wanted to live more cheaply and get out of debt. That might have come to the surface because maybe you suffered from the rug being pulled out from under you because of a debt in a past life. And it's caused that vulnerability while Pluto is retrograding in the second house to come to the surface again. And so you're like, oh my God, how do I get out of debt this time? I don't want to go through that again. Even though you may never go through that again in this lifetime, the vulnerability, the emotion, the psychology of it is present in your soul, and it can come to the surface during this retrograde process. Pluto is obsession. We can also, while he's retrograde, we may have been obsessing over feeling out of control of our resources. We might have been obsessing over debts and bank accounts that may have never bothered us before. We might be very much independent and refusing to let another person control anything that we have. No, I'm not going to give control of this aspect of my business to a marketing group because I want it done my way. We control over what is ours. We can become obsessive and sort of a bit power hungry over what is ours, what we have, what we own. This can also express as, well, this is mine and that's yours, and you're not taking what's mine from me. These sorts of themes come to the fore when Pluto moves retrograde through the second house. But the reason that this happens is because things need refining. Things need to come to the surface, and the cobwebs in those sorts of value situations need to be cleared. We need to get rid of our past life hang-ups and worries, and we need to release those so that we can move forward lighter and freer. So there's a renovation being done in that area. You do have the ability to share what you have, my beautiful Capricorn friends, but the energy of the transit of Pluto retrograde in the second house may have made it very aggravating and frustrating for you to do so. But now that Pluto's direct, you're going to feel safer, more secure, more established with your resources for whatever reason. Maybe you've changed and restructured your debts, or where you live, or gotten rid of some resources that were cluttering up your home, and you're feeling more in control of what is yours. And with that comes the ability to perhaps be a little more generous with what you have, a bit more giving, and a bit less what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, I'm controlling everything. So this is some of the process around Pluto moving direct in the second house. It can also help us to move forward with any plans we have for making money, creating money, and generating money. In fact, for the next 20 years, you're very blessed to have Pluto in the house of resources, because this is a wonderful place where Pluto can generate more prosperity for us. He is, after all, the god of great wealth, moving through the house of your resources for the next 20 years. Lucky you, Capricorn. So just to let you know, Capricorn, I am offering live in-person readings with me for the first time ever. They are now available at my very fabulous revamped Guiding Star Astrology website. Do check it out. I would love to hear your story and share a journey of the heavens with you in a live reading. Moving along, Aquarius rising. Pardon me, Aquarius, Sun and Moon people. For our Aquarian friends, Pluto has been retrograding in your first house for the past 5 months, and now this week Pluto is moving direct. So this has been a time of great introspective change about who you are, evolving your presence in the world, maybe evolving or transforming your image and your presentation. If you haven't already done so, my beautiful Aquarius friends, now is the time for a major shift and transformation as Pluto moves direct. While Pluto is retrograding in the first house, the recuperative abilities of our body are very powerful. The healing capacity of our body is super intense because Pluto is stronger when he's retrograde. And here in the house of physical health and well-being, your physical health and vitality and well-being is enhanced, is empowered. Pluto empowers whatever it touches. And this is especially true if you've had your ascendant degree between 1 and 3 degrees of Aquarius. So the intensity of Pluto on our body can be very energizing, very empowering. You might have, felt like the Energizer Bunny for the last 5 months or so. You just go, 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 go. Now that Pluto is turning direct, it may not be as full on. It doesn't mean you're going to get sick, but it might mean that it's not so buzz, buzz, buzz. It might be just a bit more balanced, a bit more harmonious now that Pluto is moving direct. Keep in mind, beautiful Aquarian friends, that the intensity of Pluto is actually best utilized in the service of others. So ask yourself the question, even though this is in the house of you for the next 20 years, Pluto is empowering you, your body, your mind, your soul, your presence on the earth, can even lead to fame for a lot of you Aquarius people. But really, one of the key ways to utilize this energy is to look at how you can guide and help and heal and support others. That's using Pluto well for karmic reasons, beneficially. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't focus on yourself. That's called enlightened selfishness, when we honor the self first so that we have the capacity to help others. But don't let it be everything. Pluto can obsess wherever he is, and he may cause you to obsess over yourself. And so it requires a conscious effort while Pluto is in the first house to look at how you can help and bless other people. A lot of, not everybody with Pluto in the first house, but a lot of people in the first house become navel gazers because they get so focused on who they want to be and who they are. And I've even seen people as a marketing mechanism, people who have Pluto in the first house as a marketing mechanism to promote their own business or their own work or whatever, absolutely run down other people. Everybody else does this shit. I'm the only one who does things well. Things like that are really off-putting and disgusting. So I just encourage you, Aquarius, while you've got Pluto moving by transit through your first house and now moving direct, get the focus off, I'm so good. I'm not saying that you're like that naturally, but Pluto can bring it out. Pluto brings out this obsessiveness about the self, okay? It's not that that's who you are, it's just that Pluto energy that you might be dealing with. And to counteract that, you need to focus on caring for others, honoring others, uplifting others, loving others. And when you do that, you flourish. You are expanded. You are empowered. Okay? So keep that in the forefront of your mind, not just now as Pluto moves direct, but going forward for the next 20 years. Because in loving others, in uplifting others and blessing others, you will be blessing yourself ultimately and not turning other people away. Pluto in the first house is so polarizing, it can really turn people off you. It really can turn people off you. So you have to work with consciousness for the next 20 years, my Aquarian friends. Also, now that Pluto is direct, watch out for internalized anger and powerful emotions that come bubbling to the surface. That may have been very strong and intense for you over the last 5 months with Pluto retrograde. It may lessen somewhat now, but it will be present while Pluto is in the first house. Now that Pluto's direct, I do ask your forgiveness for my coughing, I'm sorry. Now that Pluto is direct, you can consider cosmetic surgery, or transformational surgery for weight loss or weight gain, complete makeovers, massive healing at both, physical level, but also psychological and spiritual level. Therapy is a good thing to engage in, but also completely renovating and changing your body and your image is something that you can look to do now and take action on now that Pluto's moving direct through your first house. Just to let you know, my beautiful Aquarian friends, I am now offering live in-person readings with me for the first time ever. I've usually done pre-recorded readings. Now I'm doing them one-on-one with you. They're available at my brand new revamped Guiding Star Astrology website, and I look forward to exploring the heavens with you. Thank you. Oh, you've gone for a walk. Thank you, my lovely Aquarian friends. And lucky last, my beautiful Pisces rising Sun and Moon people. We Pisces people have had Pluto retrograding in the 12th house for the last 5 months, and now Pluto turns direct this week. This has been a time of really dreaming big, Pisces. The last 5 months, I'm a Pisces rising, and I have found myself, exploring house websites, real estate websites, and going off into dreamland, la la land about $1 million houses and big estates and all fancy dancy stuff. Dreaming big is something Pluto does a lot of when he is retrograde in the 12th house. What is it? I mean, my 12th house lord is Saturn in Cancer natally. So, of course, when I go into big daydreams, it's about land and property and real estate, Cancer energy. But what about you? What have been your daydreams and visions and, possibilities that you aspire to in life that have really come in strong for you while Pluto's been retrograding through your 12th house, Pisces? We know you're big dreamers anyway, Pisces, and Pluto in the 12th house just makes it even more intense and powerful. Well, we should actually pay attention to what those dreams and those longings have been, because they reflect the nature of our soul, the desires of our heart. They are not to be poo-pooed, as they say. They are telling us something about who we are and the life we long for. So pay attention to those daydreams, those visionings that you've had over the last 5 months. Magic and miracles have been possible through the last 5 months as well. And if you've, tapped into the energy that I spoke about when I talked about Pluto going retrograde, you might have been able to focus a great deal on prayer, meditation, and believing in a miracle occurring for you. And a miracle may have occurred for you. Just to tell you my own story, I have launched live personal readings with people, and I was petrified of doing this, but it has actually brought a miracle into my life of blessing and connection and security that I never even imagined could be possible. So miracles can occur sometimes in ways that we can't even fathom might happen. They come out of the blue. They come in sort of like a fairy showing up, fairy godmother showing up in our lives. And certainly Pluto retrograde in the 12th house is a time when that is intensified, and the potential of that can be intensified. And now that Pluto's direct, and if we have had some kind of miracle occur or dream come true, we actually can move forward with a great deal of momentum now to enhance that, to work from that point of miraculous expression. Pluto retrograde in the 12th house is also, or has also been, a time of deep probing psychologically, analyzing who we are, analyzing everything. Something probably happened and it started to shift the lens of your life to give you a clearer focus. So it's really good for undoing self-sabotaging behaviors. I went from being afraid of doing live readings with people because I'm Pisces and I like to keep to myself, and I'm like scared of interaction with people a lot of the time, to realizing that it's an important component of what I have to offer the world. And that happened during Pluto retrograde season for me. When it began, no desire whatsoever to do live readings with people. Then life came into clearer focus as Pluto retrograded through my 12th house, and I realized that I was self-sabotaging through not doing live readings with people. I realized that it's a hang-up from probably a past life, or maybe earlier in this life where I was heavily criticized for certain things. And my fear of interaction with people was coming from those past experiences. I saw the truth of that, and I chose to move beyond it. And it hasn't been easy. It's been scary. I've been able to see and you may have been able to do the same thing too, Pisces, to see where you've let yourself down, where you've self-sabotaged, where you've made a false move or a mistake, where you've acted without integrity. Pluto retrograde reveals these hidden corners of our basement to us, not so that we feel like shit, but so that we forgive ourselves or forgive other people or make choices that are better for us in the future. We simply vow to move on, make amends, or create a new path for ourselves. That's what Pluto does when he retrogrades in the 12th house. The universe is our friend, and this has been a time of powerful support from the universe to change and release and transform old patternings, old psychological structures that do not serve us anymore. And now we're moving out the other side. We have revamped who we are. We've revamped those old patternings and beliefs and behaviors. And now we are moving forward with the new us that is expressing. Excuse me. Therapy is helpful. Very helpful. Whether that's reading therapeutic books, whether that's journaling, whether it's dance therapy or art therapy, whatever it is. But therapy is helpful always with Pluto, especially in a therapeutic house like the 12th house. But especially introspective therapy like journaling or taking, therapeutic reflective walks in nature. Those sorts of things have been really important to do and will continue to be important to do now that Pluto is direct. My dear Pisces friends, you have probably, through the retrograde period of Pluto in the 12th house, started to develop an understanding of other people's strengths and weaknesses so that you can help them, as well as helping yourself through understanding your own strengths and weaknesses too. This is a very revealing transit, Pluto in the 12th house. Wonderfully as well, it's a highly protective position too. Pluto in the 12th house, now direct, is protective. And he can be just brilliant at helping you turn dreams into reality now that he is moving forward. Especially if you've introspected and realized certain things and practice dissolving them and releasing them and letting go, that creates the psychological space for the manifestation of our heart's desires. Pluto in the 12th house, an amazing, amazing transit. Now that he's direct, you might start to see dreams becoming reality if you've done the work. Now, if you haven't done the introspective work, the therapeutic work, etc., while Pluto's been retrograde for the past 5 months, don't despair. Pluto goes retrograde for 5 months every year, and he's going to be in this house of your chart for the next 20 years. So there's plenty of time to keep working on those things. But now, for those of us who've done one layer of healing, there's still more to come for the next 20 years, but one layer of healing, then we step into some new manifestation of a dream, of a miracle, of manifestation becoming reality in our life. Just to let you know, my beautiful Pisces friends, I am now offering live in-person readings with me for the first time ever at my brand new revamped Guiding Star Astrology website. I can't wait to connect with you and hear the story of your journey of life as we explore the heavens together. Thank you for being with me for the Astro Weather Report this week. May it be a blessing to you as you are a blessing to me. And now, for those who like it, here are the blooper reels taken out of this particular video. Set time aside for family and friends and focusing on strengthening bonds. Oh, God. Oh, dear. You might have found that your presence simply